How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to the next episode of the Tactical Empire. I am here for my weekly call with Sean Ryder. How you doing, Sean?
Good, man. I can't complain. It was a great week, great weekend, and we're starting off with a fire week today on Monday.
I love it, man. Yeah, my weekend was fucking chill. I coached some football and did some other stuff. My son got to play in Rice Stadium, the college football stadium here, so that was pretty cool for them. Yeah, man, let's talk today. One of the topics that keeps coming up with people asking questions is how do I go about deciding what are the steps to my first real estate investment? You've made a couple real estate investments. Obviously, you're a very strategic thinker, a little different than me. So we'll take both perspectives of this and kind of go over how do you build, if you will, a buy box for what you're looking for? And also then what resources do you have available to you to actually make this occur, right? We've taken some very different paths in real estate. Like I came into real estate burring everything, which is buying, rehabbing, remodeling, renting, refinancing, repeating, whatever the hell it is. I don't know how many R's there are. I did that shit a lot of times, like 40 sometimes. And the reason why I did that is because to me, it was the most attractive way to get into real estate because I wanted long-term residential rentals. That's what I had settled on. That's the angle that I wanted to take because for me, I'm in this game for 30 years. I'm not trying to be here for 6 months and flip some houses and get some cash in my pocket or something like that. I wasn't interested in that stuff. I know how to earn money actively. And so for me, I wanted to earn as much active income as I can and funnel it as quickly as possible into these little banks, as I kind of think of them, which are my residential rental properties. I'm funneling money in there. And so the reason that I went the BRRRR route, though, is because one thing that people don't tell you when you go to get into investing in real estate is that you absolutely do not want to run out of cash. Your cash is what will stop your progress. And then that frustrates you. And then that is what leads you to kind of quit or abandon the plan, if you will. And so if you actually look at the stats on who owns real estate and with regards to rental properties, something like 97% of real estate investment property owners own less than 3 properties, meaning that they moved out of their house and they kept their accounts. You can use anything that's liquid to appear on your balance sheet for those type of things. But that is the biggest thing that hangs people up. So burring allows you to come in with less cash. So you get a outlay a lot less cash because you're borrowing the down payment for the home, and then you're borrowing the rehab costs for the home as well. And then when you finally come into a extended mortgage, which you're refining somewhere between month 4 and month 8, depending on how slow you are. Once you stabilize that property, you put it in a long-term mortgage position, and then you either take out the money that you initially put in, or you leave your money in there in the form of equity and also some of your cash. But it allows you to lay out less cash. So that was the route I chose. And so what that allows you to do is keep on stacking properties with an outlay of, let's say, it instead of $40,000 or $50,000 per property, I was able to put out somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 per property. And then by the time I got good at it, really good at it, some of them were zero out of pocket. Sometimes I would buy houses and gain $50,000 of equity at the exit, and I would leave with $5,000 of cash as well. So I ended up net $5,000 positive in my direction, and a home, and $50,000 of equity. Generally, for an active investor that's going to try to go full time, you need a mixture of these things. You need cash flow resources like Airbnbs. I'll let you talk in a second because I'm droning on for almost 7 minutes now.
Keep going. No, this is great. Keep going.
But you need a mixture of cash flow resources. And so what I kind of teach is, like, if you want to intermingle between the two of buy and hold long-term rentals and short-term rentals like Airbnb style, then you should probably do 3 or 4 long-term rentals and then an Airbnb to bump up your cash flow. So those cash flow positions can be all over the place, though, as you know, and your cash outlay for short-term rentals is much higher in that you've got to pay for the property, some sort of down payment. Even if you burr into it, you're still going to have to lay out a decent amount of cash because you're not going to buy like entry-level homes and make them an Airbnb in most situations, right? And so you've also got to furnish them to the tune of $15,000 on the very low end to $50,000 and higher, certainly. And so the cash outlay on a short-term rental is closer to like $100,000 in most cases. And you're going to recoup on a monthly basis a couple $1,000s, as opposed to your long-term rentals where you get a couple $100 off of every door that you have. And we haven't even dove into the realm of like commercial and all of that stuff. So,
Twofold for me. Now, there's a lot of stuff, like if you don't have any education in real estate, which 4 years ago I didn't really have any, so I had to start with accumulating education on real estate, the macro topic. Why is it beneficial? Why would I want to own it, before I got down into the details of my quote buy box. But looking back in hindsight, why did I go the route that I went? It's twofold for me. One, my personal psychology, and I'll explain that in a moment. And two, the context of the individual situation I found myself in 3 years ago. Okay, so I think Jeff just gave a really good overview of why he does what he does in the BRRRR method. For me, I own 0 long-term rentals in residential real estate. Why did I go that route? Well, first of all, I had a really good business. Wife has a really good income. We're really good stewards of money. We were growing our own personal bank through Infinite Banking. If you listen to our other podcasts, you understand that. And then I found myself in a position where I wanted to create wealth. And yes, it was about long-term wealth, but we were coming out of the pandemic lockdowns, and owning a gym was the worst business that you could have owned, essentially, coming out of that. And so my gym, after being hit and seeing a decrease of 40%, that was really the catalyst to me psychologically saying, I need to buy things that can put income into my life now. So when you're looking at the delicate balance between long-term wealth buy and hold strategies versus cash flow now, I started erring on the cash flow now side of things. What can I get into that will put money in my pocket? And to just be frank, like, it sounds weird telling people this, but this is the truth. First of all, $300 to $400 a month didn't fire me up, right? I was running a business. I was increasing my income. And so just $300, it didn't really tickle my fancy, for lack of a better phrase. And then when I actually asked myself, what is my investor DNA? What is my investor psychology? Even though I didn't know much about real estate, I could kind of pick apart things that I did in the past. And let's be honest, when I was an athlete, I wanted to be really good. I wanted to look great. I wanted to perform well. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be on the best teams. I walked on to the best college football program in 1AA at the time, FCS, now Appalachian State. Now they leveled up into FBS. But I walked on to the best program, right? They had won the national championship. We won 2 more while I was there as a walk-on. I came out, became a high school teacher. I wanted to be the best. Over 90% of my students passed the financial literacy exam in the state of Virginia. I became a football coach. We wanted to be the best. I started a gym. I wanted to be the best. I got into Infinite Banking. I wanted to understand everything about it, and I wanted to get really good at it. Became a business mentor, wanted to be really good at it. I'm getting to a point here. So when I invested in real estate, I actually didn't want to buy rundown properties and fix them up. Because I wanted to buy into things that were already great. And that's just how my brain worked. Also, if you ask me, am I handy with tools and do I understand anything about construction? The answer is absolutely freaking no. I barely changed my daughter's bike tire a couple weeks ago, but it took me 3 months to even get to it. But I wanted to buy things that were already performing. So I could talk about the commercial building. That was a very unique situation. I really swung for the fences on that. But let me go to short-term rentals because you brought that up. For me, my first short-term rental, it was something that was sexy, to be honest with you. I found a property that was stood up by another couple. It was a brand new build. They built it during the lockdowns. It was an A-frame cabin in the middle of the woods of West Virginia, 2 hours from the big city, which is everyone that lives in a city wants to get out of the city on the weekends. They had Airbnb'd it for 6 to 9 months. So they had data. They furnished it with top furnishings. They had a good listing. They had great reviews. They had systems in place. They had a cleaner in place. And so all I had to do was buy the income. And that's what I did. There was no work necessary. And so for me, that was very, very attractive. And again, when you get into short-term rentals, the cash flows can be up and down. And if you look at mine, it does fluctuate, but it's fluctuating on the high end because of the type of property that I bought. And we had bought it furnished, to your point, we paid a premium for it. But fortunately, it appraised very well. So we could just roll all that into the financing. That taught me, okay, well, maybe my buy box is buy Airbnbs that are already operating. So 6 months later, we bought another one that was, it wasn't a new build, but it was newly renovated with nice furnishings, a hot tub in a ski resort town an hour south of us instead of an hour west. So there we bought the furnishings again. And then this third one, almost a year later after that second one, this was the first one where, yes, it was a brand new build, but we had to furnish it ourselves. And so that was a new thing for us, building it up from scratch. But if that's where I learned, okay, I am buying nice things. I want to buy things with a track record. And now with the first 2 properties, I learned what to do to get them very attractive from a guest experience standpoint. So when we bought the third one, it definitely was a little bit more work from the furnishing and a little bit more expensive from the furnishing standpoint. But we had listed it. We learned how to list it early, get eyeballs on the property, and get bookings before we actually closed on the property. So my buy box came from my psychology and other areas of my life, which in one short sentence is I want to be the best. I want to buy nice things. I want to be proud of the things that I own. I'm not a handyman. I don't know anything about building. And so that's where I shied away from at least the BRRRR method. I know that doesn't completely negate long-term rentals, but my statement to that is $300 wasn't exciting to me. I needed to buy income. That was my goal, buy income. And $300 a month for, like you said, 25 to 50 grand a pop wasn't exciting to me.
Well, I mean, I think that part of your buy box should be how much equity you gain going in. And so like most of these guys that are listening are trying to do long-term rentals and they're not necessarily burring them. Most of the people we work with have other shit going on and they're not interested in digging into taking on projects like that. For me, I find it very attractive to be able to do the value add because I know that every single thing that I do is just capturing money to straight to my bottom line. But to that point, you can capture equity on a turnkey property if you buy right? Like, so the common phrase or philosophy in the real estate world is like, you make your money at the buy, right? Going in, if you will, not at the sell. And so the reason is because, and this is what we teach in the group, is that the guys need to be offering, they need to be gaining 20% equity on the way in. If at all possible, you want to get close to that. You do not want to outlay cash of every nickel to meet the appraised value today, because that's just overextending yourself to the point where it's not a very good investment because you haven't necessarily, you're leaving it up to happenstance on whether you're going to do that. You're actually going to capture equity. Like I shared on the call the other day that, on our group call, that Austin is actually one of the most saturated markets in the country right now. And I saw somebody share something yesterday that said there was a house over there for 460 or something right now that is actually listed now at 390. So they are dropping prices because of the glut of inventory in the market. Now, I don't know what the fuck the house looked like. It might have been a total tear down or something. So I don't know that particular deal. I just do know that the components that you put yourself at risk if you do not capture equity on the way in. And as investors, like that is the name of the game. Like you cannot get emotional about these properties. Like that's what you're going to have a tendency to do based on the way that you like are looking for properties. Now you have a keen eye for doing it. And so like, if you can keep your emotion out of it and you can keep your wife's emotion out of it, maybe you guys can ultimately be successful on every single deal. But that's something you are at risk of. Whereas like the properties I go into they don't look like anything to me except money. And I'm like, okay, like I know what I can do with this blank canvas. And can I add a bedroom? Can I add a bathroom? Like those are huge equity captures in the BRRRR game. Because if you can go buy a 2-2 and you can turn it into a 4-3, holy fuck. Like I've added $75,000, $100,000 of equity that way. And it cost me 27 grand. Like that's a good play right there. And so all that said, I think there's ways to do this where you can strategically buy any of these properties, but you do have to understand your personality and you do have to understand what you're willing to do. For me, I have experience in real estate. I've done this before. I did that before I even started BRRRRing these properties because I bought my first apartment complex when I was 26 years old. I bought a 7-unit apartment in Illinois a long time ago. So I have been in the game for 18 years at this point. And now, not consecutively, I took about 5 years off. We sold a bunch of stuff in 2013, didn't own any real estate from 2013 to 2018. But during that period of time, I was still learning and doing all those things. And everyone should read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. If you're at a crossroads on where to start, that kind of lays out a little bit of psychology on what you're going to do as an investor and where you should take your direction of focus, if you will. Now, it doesn't really cover like commercial stuff, which Sean has mentioned he's in. I'm starting to buy. I bought in self-storage now. I'm moving into commercial as well. We've got another guy in our group who's buying multi-million-dollar commercial buildings as well that are not residential. So if you're looking for education on that front, there's a lot of different areas to get it, but they are more cash flow than obviously residential with different problems, right?
Yeah.
So they all come with their own problems, but you have to kind of ask the right questions and get around people that are doing it so that you can figure out like what problems are you wanting to deal with.
Yeah, watch out, guys. Jeff is selling me on long-term rentals and burning some properties with this masterclass on it. So, but for real though, like now that I'm in a position, you fast forward a year and a half, and you know, a couple $1 million of real estate. Now I'm starting, and then with short-term rentals, which are, even though I have a team in place, it's still under my host profile, and I see everything that comes in. And I'm very good at servicing clients and from my other investments, and so I still have a hand in messaging. Before a guest arrives. Once a guest arrives, my management company kind of takes over. But now I'm getting to a point where I've solidified the cash flow. So I'm starting to consider, how can I get into buy and hold? Now, a question that I'm coming up to is, do I want to do that myself, or do I want to partner with people, which is probably ultimately how I get to the next level personally. But I don't want to glance over something that you said multiple times. And I want to help the people that are either in my shoes now or where I was before, which was, I don't understand everything when it comes to long-term rental analysis. So when you're telling people that you want to make sure you're buying equity on the way in, the twofold there is on the front end, on the deal, right? On the price that you're getting and the possible appraised value. But then also, if you've done your due diligence, can you add value? Are those the two main types? And where do you see most first-time investors getting the most bang for their buck? Because and again, I might be naive to this. So if I'm a newer investor and I don't have a ton of money to play with, and I want to get in the game, number one, I'm probably a little hesitant to make numerous offers unless I have a really good team, good realtor behind me, and I'm pre-approved for whatever. But like, how much work goes into finding those deals? And is that market dependent? Is that area dependent? Like, I'm outside of DC. There's a lot of DC money coming out to my town. And sometimes it's hard. Maybe this is a story I've told myself or what I've been told by other people. It's just hard to buy, the things that are deals around here. So what would you say to someone new is like, what does that actually look like instead of a buy equity on the way in? It's creating a team, having them find the deals for you. What are you doing?
What I recommend, that's a great question. That's a great question, because that's like question number one that everybody has is like, how do I find deals? And what I recommend to everybody is, personally, I'm not scared to own things that I can't drive by like every day. And so especially in this market, like you have to, like you can live wherever you want to live. You don't have to live down the street from your rental properties. And there's areas of the country that are much, much better for landlording. There's areas of the country that are much, much better for buying, and your money will go a lot farther. And there's a lot more upside of appreciation. And so with that said, like what I tell people is you need to contact, I don't know how many realtors it'll take, but you want to contact realtors and say, hey, do you work with finding homes for investors? And they're going to say yes or no. And you're kind of going to get a feel for them. Most of them have no idea what they're doing. Most realtors don't work with investors, and they won't ever send you anything. And that's no big deal. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be building your list of contacts within the actual like MLS real estate realtor community. because you can find gems in there, and they have access to deals before they hit the MLS. So they know, hey, Jeff's looking for that in that zip code, and they're going to contact me and say, hey, this is going on the market Thursday at this price. I think he'll take this amount of money. Do you want to make an offer? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's get in there and do it today and figure it out. So realtors are the conventional method, however. And so you should get on every Facebook group in your local community, wherever you're searching, like Houston, Texas, like wholesaler community. So you would go, if I were doing it right now and I was starting, I would go Houston, Texas, real estate investing community and see what comes up for the groups. And then I would join all the groups. I would look around. I would see what's valuable, what's not. I would probably search in each group for wholesaling or wholesale and see what pops up as far as posts. Because a lot of times wholesalers will come on there and say something like they've got a deal, and then you can throw your email in there in the comments and they'll add you to their list. Like, you want to be a part of as many wholesalers distribution lists as you can, because those guys are out beating the streets, locking up deals, and they're contracting these things and they're bringing you the deal and they're selling it to you, and they're making a little margin on the arbitrage, right? So meaning, like, they may lock up a property for $100,000. They may sell it to me for 120 and like make $20,000, or they may lock it up for 100 and sell it to me for 105 and just make a little bit of change on the way out. It doesn't matter to me as long as they're not like oppressive. But because they're doing a service for me, they brought me a deal I didn't find on my own. So like, some people get all butthurt about it and fucking act weird, and they're like, I'm not giving that guy 20 fucking grand. And I'm like, well, you didn't have a deal yesterday, and he brought it to you in hand and gave it to you. So like, is that worth something to you? Because I'm about time and speed and compressing fucking results, right? And so, like, to me, I understand like that's the way business works. Now, if he sold me $100,000 house and he made $100,000 on it, I'd be like, God damn, dude, you could have fucking sold that to me for 50 and we could have both got out of here a little better off. I'm doing 5 deals a month with you. So there's conversations to be had like that. You create relationships. Like, I'm a relationship guy. I like to be with the same people long term. And so like there's angles there. So wholesaling, build yourself a team of realtors. Hopefully a good realtor will be sending you stuff frequently. You know if they're involved with you or if they care that you get a deal, if they're sending you stuff with any sort of frequency. If you just never hear from them again, like, they're probably not out looking for deals for you, just so you know. But that said, if they do send you stuff, the best way to grow that relationship is give them feedback on what they've sent you. It doesn't mean you need to buy it. Say, hey, I am looking for this, but I'm not looking in that area. That's a little bit hood for me, or something like that. Whatever you're looking for, give them feedback, because that keeps them engaged, that you're not just like ignoring them. Because that's another thing that beginners have a huge problem with. Like, they're not very active decision makers. And when you're not an active decision maker, if you get people bringing you deals and you're like, I don't know, I need to call 60 people and ask them if it's a good idea, and you need all this external validation to get your shit done, like, they're going to tell you to fuck off, and they're going to take the deal somewhere else. Because like, guys like me will buy it sight unseen. I don't even care. I know where that's at. I own 3 other houses down that way. Like, I'll take it. And I am way easier to work with than you, who is like, well, me and my wife are going to go over there on Thursday. I'm going to take my mom and my mother-in-law over there on Friday. We're all going to look at it. We're going to make a decision. Like, they're out. They're out. Those dudes are making money. They're transacting this deal, and it's only under contract for a finite amount of time. So you guys, when you're starting, it's better to understand your personality and how much information you need to gather before you're willing to make a decision, and go ahead and don't waste anyone's time while you're gathering all of that information. Get yourself up to a comfort level where you can actually make a decision like an adult. And like, then you won't burn any bridges. Like, because you just come across as a not serious individual when you're like, okay, I just sent you 3 deals that were exactly what you said, and you didn't do any of them. And so they're not coming back to you with deals because they're like, I've got buyers over here who, like I said, are buying 5 a month, and they've got cash, and they've got credit lines, and they've got all this other stuff set up. So just be aware of your reputation and the way that it comes off, how you handle yourself and how you operate in these environments. Because if you want people to feed you deals, you've got to give them feedback, and you've got to be timely, and you've got to be decisive on what you're doing. Now, that doesn't mean you need to get pigeonholed into a deal you don't want. I say no all the time, but I say no, and I'm very direct, and they know I'm not sitting on the fence, like figuring it out or chasing some money down. Like I need 3 weeks to go ahead and see if I can get a lender to cover this for me. Cause like, then you come off as not serious as well. Right. So you got to get your shit together first, and then it's time to go figure it out. So wholesalers, Facebook groups, like, I mean, I don't even get as complicated as like, there's ways to skip trace and market these people and like pull addresses and do mailers and like put a little money behind it. I mean, if you're serious, you can do that and you can get a good response rate. And even if it costs you $1,000 a month, if you get a deal out of $1,000, that's a pretty damn good expense, right? And so I don't want to overcomplicate it though, because most people that are doing this are kind of just like mom and pops, and they're like, how do we source a deal? Facebook Marketplace is an excellent place right now, because people that are, and I'm not saying this lightly or like being an asshole, but like people that are in distressed situations are out there listing their homes on their own to see if they can preserve the 6% for the realtor. And in most cases they can, if they're willing to list it correctly. And so that's why there's always deals in every single market. Always. Like, this is something I will argue till the end of the earth with people on, because that's what inevitably people tell me, there's no deals everywhere. And there's always deals in every single market because of life events constantly. Like, you have deaths, you have divorces, you have diseases, and like shit happens. And so if you are the person that is watching these markets and watching these things, then you can find these deals. But it's about consistency and how often you do it. I mean, we have guys in our group that tell me there's no deals, and they spend like 30 minutes a month looking at shit. I'm like, you have no idea what's going on in that market. None. Like, when I'm hot and I'm buying, like, I spend minimum 30 minutes every day refreshing listings, calling people, sending emails. Like, I'll send out text messages, because if you send out 20 text messages like to different people, if you message people on Facebook Messenger, like stuff like that, then you can just set it and forget it. You put the ball in their court, and then it's time for them to follow up. Like, you don't have to do anything else. Like, you can bang that shit out in like a short amount of time, but you're still like making progress, and you're still like operating at kind of a vibrational level of productivity. And when you're just sitting back there waiting for something to come to you, it's never coming.
All right. So those of you listen to this, if you're taking notes, it's 1, build your self-education, 2, wholesalers, 3, building your team, especially with a realtor that works with investors. 4, one thing that you mentioned there, but didn't mention it, but it's something that I've been exposed to, is esquires and estate attorneys that are actually handling people's estates after the matriarch pass away, that the kids don't want to own the property. I mean, getting in with your estate attorney and telling them that you're serious about looking at deals that are off market or not going to hit market yet, because it's going through probate or whatever all it's called. That's above my head. I know people that have relationships with my estate attorney that do that. And then there's getting close to people like Jeff. So half of the people listening to this call just heard everything Jeff said, and they're like, that's who I'm competing against. There's no way I can get into the deal. No, get started. But Jeff, I'll pose this question. You can take it where you want for as long as you want. If someone does all that and they're not pulling the trigger, the other avenue is to find people like you. Who are people like you looking for in terms of possible partnership. You have the experience, you have obviously the money, but you have the desire to grow your portfolio. So how can someone set themselves up for success when they present themselves to someone like you for a potential possible partnership? Or are you only looking for people that have not just the financial backing, but some experience themselves? Or is that just dependent on the person?
So who would I take in as a possible JV?
Sure.
Ooh, JV means joint venture, guys. Sorry. I don't know, man. Like, you and I have tossed it around a little bit. I really am somewhat of a control freak on like what I know. So like I really and I've Scott Simons is a great friend of mine. It lives right out there in Virginia near you. I told you I was going to hook you guys up online. He and I had looked at a partnership as well. He is kind of my ideal JV guy. He has a shitload of businesses producing a lot of money, and he wants to be involved in what I'm doing, but he doesn't want to do anything with it. And like, for me, that's kind of like my ideal JV. Like I know what I'm doing. If you want to flood some money in here, and we'll go 50-50 on it or something like that, or 70-30, like whatever everybody agrees is copacetic with everybody involved. I just really want it to be a win-win. I like doing business with my friends ultimately. And I don't, it's funny that I say that because I don't have any JVs at this point, but really I just don't need anybody else to provide any input. Now, I would JV with someone else in the same way. I'd throw a bunch of cash and then fucking not pay any attention. If I was telling you to do something, like get me a luxury Airbnb and I'll take 50% of it or 30% of it, I don't care. I would look at an investment in that same way. Like, I don't want any more things on my plate. I'm going to give you cash, you operate it. Because I just don't think there can be a lot of cooks in the kitchen in some of this shit. Like, you have to have a very strategic skill set you're bringing to the partnership to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, it's just redundancy.
If it's not just money, because the answer there was like, you just have to build up cash to give to someone and not get in their way.
Yeah. And because like, honestly, it's different than a business where you have to come into the office every day and serve clients. Like, if I'm going to go rehab a house, like, I don't want your input every day, and I don't want to have to call you every day to tell you what the fuck I did.
Right.
Like, so that's just a waste of everybody's time. But like, at the end of the day, have I been able to put together some really good joint ventures for other people because they're super advantageous? Because like, there's an operator in place that wants to do all this, and then there's a cash man back here that wants to be just a financial investor. And then at the end of the day, they put together a $20 million portfolio together, and that operator would have only got to 5 by himself because of the time it takes. Like, that's mutually beneficial for everyone involved, and everyone's winning. And so, but it takes the right personality to be able to step back, and it takes the right operator to be able to produce the cash flow. Because what shuts me up is the checks in my mailbox. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, if I throw you a couple $100,000 and then you start kicking me money every month or every quarter or whatever we'd agreed on, then I'm like, it's business as usual. That's what I expect. And then like, I literally have no questions for you. And like, that's what I would expect from a partner as well. Now like, there may be some different circumstances. I have other deals where I'm involved in a syndication, and we bring in strategic partners and give them equity shares for the work they're doing. So like lawyers, things like that, you have to write up all the legal documents. You're the accountant, so you get 3% of shares, and you will take care of all the tax shit. If we get audited, you're going to do that. It's like skin in the game from that perspective. Now, those are big deals. And so I'm involved in a couple of those as a general partner. But that's how you would do that. But smaller stuff, or like, if you and I were going to take down something like a $1 million storage or a couple $1 million storage facility that we were both comfortable with from a dollar figure standpoint, like, we probably wouldn't bring anyone else in and erode our equity. We would probably just pay out those shares. or I mean, we would probably just pay contractors to do that work. Does that answer your question?
This was awesome. No, that was awesome. This whole episode was fantastic, and I wish I would have had that episode 3 or 4 years ago. One underlying thing there that, again, Jeff has so much experience in this field, but if I could pull some of the things out that he says that I would want to hear as someone listening to this, again, learn and take notes, it's right there was you got to have some sort of level of maturity, not only as a human being, but as an investor. And if you're coming into networks, groups of people, telling people you have 6 figures of cash that you want to give them and let them lead the investment deal, you got to come at it with some level of maturity. And if you're used to your 401k and the stock market going up and down, and you're one of the people that freaks out when it goes down, you can't bring that type of personality into these real estate deals. If you're doing that with someone like Jeff, it's going to be a one and done, right? You have to bring in the money, trust them that, it's going to get done. You got to understand the objective, the goals of this type of investment. And when things don't go your way, you can't throw a little hissy fit, right? And that's something that really attracts me to Jeff, because if you listen to this podcast and got this far, we do think a little bit differently. We still have the end goal in mind of building wealth via real estate, but I know that I probably need someone like him on my team when I get to the point of needing, wanting, and ready to pull the trigger on an investment partner. So I that does not scare me, what Jeff says. It actually fires me up and makes me want to be closer to someone like him when it comes to a potential investment opportunity. So guys, hit us up with the takeaways from this podcast. Jeff, is there anything else that you want to throw out there to the people?
I think that you just have to you have to understand that things are going to go wrong. No matter what you do, if you're buying a single family home by yourself with just you and your wife, like, just go into it understanding that whatever can possibly go wrong will go wrong. And it's the same thing on the JV opportunities too. Like, everybody is touting like get rich quick stuff and like, here's your returns and everything else. I would just tamp all that and say, like, this is a long-term play. Like, if I get half that return, I'll be happy. And like, if you set your expectations and then you just can move through in a calm manner, then you can continue to invest with people. The funny thing is there's all these investment groups, and like, they funnel all these W-2 people in there. And so your first syndication will have a massive amount of investors. And what you see is they do monthly calls, and like, Jody is the person chirping at the lead investor constantly, has 1,000 questions, and like, the funnel gets smaller and smaller after that. The next deal, Jody's not invited to. The next deal, the 30 loudmouths are not invited to. So what you'll find over time is, if you want to be a passive investor, you should be there's ways to be a good passive investor too. And amicable with an understanding that like, we're going to get smacked in the face sometimes and like, shit's going to happen. Like, I mean, that's just the name of the game. And so, as long as like everybody's on board and everybody's doing legal shit, like, and doing the best they can, and not like leaving jobs for 6 months with nothing done, like, that's kind of weird and you're not fulfilling your obligation. But like, if they're doing the best they can and like normal life is happening, you just need to chill and let the thing operate and do what it's supposed to be doing, which is earning you money. Yeah, I don't want to drown on the topic. I could go on forever.
That was awesome, man. No, that was great information. And at the end of the day, just, I mean, full transparency, if you guys haven't heard it from Jeff and I, like, we both still have active income sources, right? Like, no one's just making a couple deals, then go sitting on the beach somewhere. Like, 99.9% of people investing in real estate are still driving income up. And this is early on, especially, this is going to be the source of your deals. And so when you can maybe pass off and be a partner and not get involved, then it keeps your eyeball on the thing that you're good at, which is whatever it is that's driving your income. Don't forget that. Don't get this, dream of, in the next 24 months, that I'm just going to be a real estate investor. Possible, sure, maybe, depending on the situation, but we're both still out there doing work and adding value to the world. And then as that money flows into our life, we decide to preserve it in life insurance and real estate. And so that's why you guys are here. And hopefully you guys had some big takeaways from this episode. I certainly did. I appreciate your time, Jeff.
Awesome, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.